Those of you who remember the 1980s will have heard records that have drum sounds a bit like this. Great. This is an app called FunkBox by Synthetic Bits. Now, they have put together lots of old drum machine models into one app, and then you can play them, make patterns up, all that sort of thing. You can use an iRig MIDI port on here to control it from a digital audio workstation. Now, yes, these sounds are available in other places, but it's been rather neatly put together here with a sort of retro look. I'm just about old enough to have played with some of these machines. However, if you look on eBay, try finding a TR-808 for less than a couple of £1,000s. So if you get all of the drum machines on here, you're looking at a fairly hefty deposit on a very nice house. Or you can spend £4.99 on this. Now, all the sounds are available as buttons. Very few of the drum machines were actually touch sensitive, so you're not actually losing much by playing them just with a single sound. You can though vary the volumes of your drums using the part mixer here. So if I just press play, and you'll hear the snare go in and out. And there's your kick drum. You can vary the position of all of these drums or sounds through the stereo image. So when the sliders are in the middle, they're in the middle. And when they're up at the top, goes over to the right and to the left. So you can create some quite subtle stereo imaging with your drums. Just gives it a little bit more presence in that stereo image. Now, we have a tempo control down here, which you can either tap the tempo as you can on a modern piece of digital kit, or you can vary it with the slider for anywhere from 60 to 180. And it's within a tenth of a BPM. That should satisfy most tastes. So 120. You can edit the pattern in here. Now, many of these original drum machines also had sequencers built in, so you could store an entire song and then play it onto one track of your tape machine. No such luxury here, but with the MIDI input from your digital audio workstation, you can regain that functionality. Now, if I go into Pattern Edit, you can see that there is, at the moment, well, let's just look at that, there is a grid here showing steps 1 to 16 and then another for steps 17 to 32. You can see all 32 steps at once if you split the drum machine here, so that we are looking at the kick drum, snare drum and the hi-hats only, and then you can edit the other side. Sometimes it's easier to do this than to look in two separate windows. So I can just tap on these sounds to get more things. So I just do a random load of taps. You can hear that the sounds change. And then you can go and store that pattern storage. You can store that as whatever you want to do. So looking at, there are a few little presets here. Look at some of the other drum machines. The TR-909, which came in 1983, has digital samples for your cymbal sounds, but still synthesized drums. That's a pretty realistic crash cymbal there. But the drums are still synthesized. If we look at the Linn drum machine here, all of the sounds were sampled. This was a very expensive machine from 1982, which had 35 kilohertz sampling frequency, so it was big news for the time. The cymbal sounds are slightly less realistic than the TR-909, but it has its own sound. Now, if you type all of these machines into Wikipedia or Google or wherever, you can see the list of artists that use this or any of the other models. If we look at one of the older ones here, we've got the Roland CR78 from 1978. Some people say they sound really game-like, and I think that's a bit unfair, because if you get a real drummer to record and then put some sounds from this over the top, you can get a really nice overall sort of percussive sound to your tune. Those of you who listen to Shuggy Otis, and if you haven't, give it a listen, will hear a tune called Out of Me Head, spelt rather bizarrely. But he uses a drum machine and a drummer at the same time to great effect. And that was in 1973, when drum machines really were in their infancy. So, looking at the sliders, we've got the volume and the pan. We also have an accent control where you can decide on how each part sort of plays its individual function in the mix. We have a master volume control as well, and some of these pads you can assign different sounds. So the low tom, for example, can be a clap sound in well, whatever sound that is. It says clap, but it's clearly not. High tom, cowbell, ride, crash, clave or rim shot. Now this is actually quite reminiscent of these machines in that they had lots of sounds on board, but you couldn't always play them all at once. So actually it's quite true to the original machines. So you can export audio here. You can decide that you're going to just play that back and send it somewhere, or you can export the MIDI pattern. You can do lots and lots of things with this. So on settings, we have audio MIDI settings. You can set the various channels, all that sort of thing. There is a very brief view of FunkBox.